There is a reason why July is considered to be one of the best months to visit Iceland. The weather is reasonable, the entire landscape is lush and green, lupins are still blooming, and you can access pretty much any part of the island. This also makes it a great month for those of you traveling here for the first time because it is just so easy to plan. That being said, there are still many things that can completely turn your trip upside down, and so in this video I'll tell you exactly what to expect. What weather to expect, what to pack, what the roads are like, and some of the biggest planning mistakes that people usually make and how to avoid them. That way you'll be prepared for everything, you'll avoid a lot of stress, and you'll actually be able to focus on the best part of visiting Iceland, which is spending your time outside, exploring some of the most breathtaking places on Earth. And if you are meeting for the first time, my name is Jan, I'm originally from Czech Republic and I've been living here in Iceland for almost 10 years now. Over those years I've helped thousands of people visit Iceland the right way, whether it was through my social media or my travel guides. And so I guess that I know a thing or two about visiting Iceland. Alright, let's start with one of the most unique things about this month that will really shape your trip. The sun barely dips below the horizon in July, which means the nights stay completely bright. On July 1st, sunrise is around 3 AM and sunset is around midnight. By the end of the month, the days are shorter by nearly 3 hours, but the nights still stay quite bright. So what does this actually mean for you, and should you really care? Well, if you asked me, Jan, would you rather have northern lights or 24/7 sunlight? Then I would pick a 24/7 sunlight every single time. It just makes traveling so much easier, you are not limited by darkness, which means that if you overplan, and trust me, many people do, myself included, you will still have time to visit all the places you hope to see without worrying about the sun going down before you get there. And that is one of the reasons why months like July are really forgiving, especially for the first time visitors with ambitious itineraries. And also it is perfect for avoiding crowds. July is one of the busiest months of the year and some popular spots can really feel like theme parks. That's why I only visit the most popular places very early in the morning or late at night. That's when most of the people are already relaxing in their accommodations, and the tour buses, which contribute to a lot of the crowds, these only operate during the day. What you can also do is to sleep during the day and then travel at night, and that way you'll be sure that you'll avoid most of the crowd and you'll have most of these places only for yourself. But let me also tell you that this isn't always simple and requires a lot of planning. But then even something simple like, visiting places like Skogafoss at 10 PM instead of the midday can completely change your entire experience. And so that's what I really love about July. However, there are still some downsides too. One of the biggest is that many people come to Iceland during the summer expecting to see northern lights. And as you probably know by now, that's just not going to happen. You need a complete darkness to see them, and so if seeing the northern lights is one of your top goals, then consider visiting later in the year. Your first real chance is the second half of August, though September is probably even better because the nights are considerably longer. Another thing that can affect your stay is the constant daylight. It can really mess with your sleep and you might find it even harder to fall asleep, or you just wake up at the strange times. Most places you'll stay have blackout curtains, but don't rely on that completely. Just bring a sleep mask, and I know that it sounds basics, but it can really make a huge difference in helping you fall asleep and basically get some proper rest during the night so you feel well rested for your next day of adventure. Now let's talk about another super common area where people get things completely wrong, and that's packing. More specifically, packing the right clothes. July generally has a mild weather, with temperatures usually around 10 degrees, give or take 5 degrees either way. But what you really need to understand is that it is this Icelandic wind which is almost always there, which makes it feel much colder than it actually is. And Icelandic weather changes constantly. You might often experience sunshine and a rainstorm within the same hour. And so the goal here is to just have clothes that will keep you warm and dry. And I have put together a free packing list that you can download below. It includes items that you may have not thought to bring, like a mosquito net. And that can, for example, help with midges, which can be pretty annoying at certain areas, especially if you are camping. But let me just cover the clothing basics here, because that's what matters most. Start with a merino wool t-shirt as your base layer, then add some thin down jacket for insulation, and then top it off with a waterproof jacket. And for your legs, bring a waterproof hiking pants and a pair of merino wool long johns for colder days. You can also pack some wool beanie, thin waterproof gloves and a buff or scarf. These can really come handy when it gets cold. And honestly, if you only bring like these items that I have just mentioned, plus maybe some other essentials that are on the packing list that you can download, and I think that you are all good to go. I almost forgot to mention, when it's very cold, I lately really fell in love wearing this woolen sweater. It keeps you so warm, it is unbelievable. It's a really great thing to have, and also if you are camping, having something like woolen padded pants is really nice as well. But now let's also mention what not to wear. Cotton t-shirts and hoodies, they are fine for comfort, but if that's all you bring and the weather turns bad, then you are in for a rough time. And it is the same thing with jeans and other city style pants, totally impractical for Iceland. Next thing, sneakers, not ideal. Many spots like waterfalls or geothermal areas have these muddy, slippery trails. And I'm not saying that you need a full-on trekking boots, but you should at least have something that's made for a rough terrain, something with a good grip and preferably waterproof. For example, I've been wearing these lightweight high-ankle hiking shoes for years, and they have worked great. And let me also tell you, that doesn't mean that you need to look like you are dressing for some outdoor magazine photo shoot 24/7, You can still wear what you like, and personally, like when the weather is nice, I'm still in shorts and t-shirts. And I've had a chance to test like so many different kinds of clothes here in Iceland over those years, and this is just something that works well. Now let's talk about the biggest dilemma that people have. Which part of Iceland should you visit, and how do you plan an itinerary that actually makes sense? First thing, ask yourself, how long are you visiting for, If it's anything less than 7 days, then I honestly think that you should skip the idea of doing the entire ring road. Yes, it is technically possible, but there is just way too much to see. You will end up stopping way more than expected, and the drive will likely take twice as long as you think. And so instead, focus on a specific region. And I know what you are probably thinking. Won't I miss out on a lot? And yeah, sure, but here's the truth. A, you won't see everything even if you stay for 2 weeks. And B, you could easily spend 1 week in a single region and still have a packed and amazing itinerary. And so doing that will basically help you avoid burnout and prevent you from spending most of your trip inside a car. Just take a look at my Iceland map. There are hundreds of places marked, and I still keep adding more. Which leads me to the question that people ask me all the time. How do I find places that just aren't, packed with tourists? And honestly, this map is the answer. I put a lot of effort into it, and every pin has a picture, description, direct links to Google Maps for navigation, and a lot more. And so if you want to see Iceland from locals' perspective, instead of just visiting the same places as every other tourist, this map will be one of the best investments that you can make for your trip. And you can just check it out using the link below. But now, if you have 7 days or more, then yes, you can do the full ring road, but I think that still giving yourself at least 10 days is ideal. That way you'll have a time to travel at a reasonable pace and add in some fun detours like Landmannalaugar, the Westman Islands, or the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. But let me also bring up the biggest mistake that people make all the time, no matter the season, and that's over-planning. Honestly, you have probably packed in way too many places and you definitely need to shave your itinerary down. Just to give you an example, like even if you are just checking the driving times, and the distances on the maps, add in at least 1, 2, 3 hours. Why? Well, it's simple, because there'll be just tons of unexpected stops and so many of all kinds of scenic viewpoints. And remember, you won't see everything even on a multiple trips. And so do yourself a favor and don't let the fear of missing out, turn your vacation into a stressful rush. But now let's dive into some of the most frequently asked questions about visiting Iceland in July. Is July more expensive than other months? Sadly, yes, July is the peak season, which also makes it one of the busiest times of the year. And, high season means a lot of activities and accommodations are likely to get booked out early. And so planning well ahead of time will definitely give you better options and probably better prices, and you won't be stuck choosing from what's left. And it is pretty simple, because what happens if the demand is high? The prices go up as well, and so you can probably expect to pay at least like 20 to 30% more compared to the off-season. Is it too crowded? And again, the short answer here will be unfortunately yes, but it is honestly more nuanced than that. Tourism in Iceland isn't evenly distributed, and the south coast is where you'll find the most crowded spots, while many other regions are much more peaceful. But then even in the south, it's really just the most famous locations that get packed. Most people visit the same few places they find online, and that's where all the tour buses go to. But then, there is this contrast, like if you walk, for example, just a few hundred meters away, then you might find another waterfall or different viewpoint, and there is barely anyone there. And one of the best ways to avoid crowds is by hiking. Most tourists only visit attractions a few steps from the parking lot. And speaking of escaping crowds, I'm also renting out my cabin in the Troll Peninsula. So if you're looking for a secluded place in the nature, in one of the most beautiful valleys in Iceland, make sure to check out the link below. Is July a good time for camping? And the answer is absolutely. While the weather can still be a bit cold and rainy sometimes, this is about as good as it gets for camping in Iceland. All the campsites are open, and aside from a few exceptions, you usually don't need a reservation and you can just show up. And just remember that wild camping is not allowed, and even though there are still some exceptions, like for example if you are trekking in remote areas without a nearby campsite. But in general, you just cannot pitch your tent anywhere you want, and same thing goes for vans, you cannot park and sleep in the car anywhere you want. What tours and activities can you do in July? Honestly, there is no shortage of things to do in July, but with that said, I just won't give you one, must-do recommendation, because what's incredible for one person might not be a good fit for someone else. Honestly, just pick what sounds exciting to you and you cannot really go wrong. And any sort of extraordinary guided adventure, something you couldn't do on your own, will likely become one of the most memorable moments of your trip. And yes, they can be very pricey, especially for, bigger groups and families, but if you can, still try booking at least 1 or 2 guided tours, and it is really worth it. Do you need a 4x4 vehicle? Well, not necessarily, it really depends on your route, and if you are sticking just to paved roads or driving the occasional gravel road, then a 2-wheel drive will be completely fine. But if you are heading into the highlands or your route includes a lot of gravel and back roads, then yes, you'll definitely want a 4x4. They just have a better suspensions and more clearance and give you a peace of mind in rougher conditions. And I also have a little discount that you can use to rent a car, so if you want, that's also something that you'll find in the description. Can you access every part of Iceland in July? Pretty much yes, and by this time of the year, basically all the roads are open. Just remember, if you plan to drive into highlands and take so-called F-roads, then you need to have 4x4. But even then, not all F-roads are the same. For some, a small SUV like Dacia Duster might be enough, but others require a heavily modified truck. And so here's where you really need to do your research, because if you, for example, happen to flood your engine during a river crossing or break down in the middle of nowhere, then you could really be looking at a huge bill and something that the insurance might not even cover. And one more thing, off-road driving is strictly forbidden in Iceland, and if that's something that you'll do, you'll pay thousands of dollars in fines, so keep that in mind. Alright, so before we wrap this up, I also want to give you a few actionable steps that you can take before your trip. Have you packed everything you need? Do you have the right clothes? If not, then simply download the free packing list below. Are you confident in your itinerary? Just review your plan again and keep the must-see stops for each day and make the rest optional. Bonus places to visit if time allows. Still need accommodation? Use sites like Booking.com and Airbnb. I find that Booking.com has usually lower prices, but then Airbnb sometimes has these unique places that locals rent out in the summer. Personally, what I often do is that I just use these sites as search engines, and then if there is some place that I like, I simply Google it and try to book a stay directly with them, and oftentimes it can be even much cheaper. Got the right car for your trip? Visit road.is and check the map under the pavement section. If you are staying on paved roads, then 2-wheel drive is completely fine, and if there is some gravel, 2-wheel drive can still work, but 4-wheel drive gives you a better ride comfort and lower the chance of flat tire. And if you see any F-roads on your route, then you will definitely need a 4x4, and you should definitely do a proper research before you start your trip. Have you saved all the important websites and emergency numbers? If not, here's the list. Pause the video and screenshot it or save it to your phone. And lastly, is your itinerary a mix of iconic sites and off-the-beaten-path places? Or is it just the list of 15 top spots that you found somewhere on the internet? If it's the second one, then start over and do some deep dive on Google Maps. That's the minimum that you can do, and even better, if you want to save the time, just grab my map. And before we end this video, let me leave you with one thought, even if this is the only thing that you'll take away from the entire video. The best part about visiting Iceland is just being here, driving through the epic landscapes, immersing yourself in nature, discovering places along the way. And so even though it might sound counterintuitive, you know, the simpler your itinerary, the better your experience will likely be. And so yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And by the way, here is another video that you might want to watch before you come to Iceland. And happy travels, and I'll see you there.